as wide receiver goes, they've got their three wide receivers committed right now. They're happy at that three number, and really I think the only people that they're really going to go after big game hunting would be guys like Jeremiah Smith. Maybe continue to recruit somebody like a TJ Moore who's committed to Clemson all the way up until the very end because he's a Tampa kid. But other than that, just really they're set with their three wide receivers that they have right now that they love, but they'll continue to go big game hunting for some of the bigger names. And as far as other positions, the positions that really need to be addressed still before the end of the cycle would certainly be cornerback. A guy like Wardell Mack, who was on campus for the Grill in the Ville event, that's somebody that I know Florida has high on their board now. Xavier Mincy from Mainland is somebody that's very high on Florida's board as well. I expect them to continue to recruit him and try to land both of those guys. And they'll continue to recruit Jameer Grimsley, who's committed to Alabama as
Mm.
well, who is also a Tampa area kid. They will not give up recruiting him and try to get him on campus over the fall for a couple games. And then just moving over, really the last guys would be LJ McCray on the defensive line, another mainland kid that Florida really has high on the board. I think it's really between Florida and Georgia right now for him. And then, of course, they're continuing to recruit a couple of other guys like a Dalen Evans who's committed to Texas A&M, who everybody thought was going to flip to Florida
Yeah.
when the summer started and nothing really materialized. They might try to get him back on campus for a visit this.
Good stuff. Dave, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Wardell Mack, obviously he visited or excuse me, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My internet, it's cut me out. Yeah, Wardell Mack, he visited there, Florida this past weekend. Heard really good news about that as well. We'll just see where that goes. And of course, Xavier Mincy, he took a visit to Miami this weekend instead of going to the Grill at the Ville. As Connor said, I still feel really strong about Xavier Mincy, even though he did take that visit to Miami. And as far as Grimsley goes, obviously Alabama commit, try to flip the guy. I mean, Florida came on him late, a little bit later than what they should have, I guess. But he commits to Alabama. They're still gonna try to go after him as well. As Connor said, they're going to add another cornerback to this class. And yeah, as far as running back, and y'all talking about, Gibson and all of that. I mean, this kid loved Florida. I mean, I remember, I think a year or two ago when Dan Mullen was our coach, he followed me on Twitter and he followed a bunch of other people. So he's loved Florida this whole time. And, Texas with their lucrative, like you said, lucrative NIL deals. An NIL deal can convince a kid to go to another said school. This is the day and age of NIL. But if he does move back to Gainesville, that puts us back in the boat for him a little bit there. Texas, they tend to overpay for running backs. It seems that way when you look at it. So, and then of course you have Jamari Howard. I mean, he visits FSU. This was a kid that we thought once he decommitted from Michigan State, he was a pretty good Florida lean. It looked like he was, he was going to commit to Florida, and then he was supposed to visit on the first round of visits that we had in July. Never visited. Then said he was going to come to the Grill at the Ville. Then at the last minute does not visit there. So I think that ship has sailed, if you were to ask me. So I think really the targets you're going to look for here is like Wardell Mack, Xavier Mincy, LJ McCray. He did visit Georgia, but he did visit Florida beforehand before he went to Georgia. I think those are the targets you really got to look out for. I would scratch Jamari Howard out if I was anybody. But you look at those, and then you got one that's really quiet right now. Seaton, the offensive lineman there at IMG Academy, is a top 50 prospect there. His names came up. You've heard rumblings. You've heard a little bit of whispers. You haven't really heard anything though. But he's one of those names to kind of look out for there towards the end. I'm sure he's going to take his visits during the football season. But I would look out for Seaton, maybe long term more than short term. But as far as that goes, man, I would say that those are the names to kind of look out for, and especially, we don't know if Grimsley's going to flip or not from Alabama, but I would just keep my eyes out.
Yeah, I love the Grimsley talk because obviously we were on his final three, I think, when he committed to Alabama. I never felt like Florida was in it, but I keep just seeing a bunch of articles with his name popping up on it. It's like, look, I love the fact that we're still constantly pursuing that, which tells us that, hey, we feel confident enough to keep having that conversation, which I love to see. The same thing with Jeremiah Smith. Love that we're still confident enough to have that conversation. Yeah, Jamari Howard, I got Steve here sitting next to me. He'll be on a little bit. He's been flexing the entire 20 minutes. He's been talking about Jamari Howard because, they feel pretty confident about him going to FSU. It is what it is. But look, that seems like we've missed out on that. And when he did decommit from Michigan State, we said right off the rip, it's a Florida State battle. It's a Florida kid. That's where it's going to happen. But Florida did have the lead for a little bit, but obviously that lead has drifted away. But look, I think it seems like it's not as exciting, but the names that are left on the board, we've talked about this time and time again. If we're able to land 3 or 4 of those guys that you all just mentioned, the both of you just mentioned, that puts us either right around above or right on that 293 overall class, which is, a record-breaking class over the last decade for the Florida Gators. And for Bill to do that in his, second full recruiting cycle is absolutely huge and massive. So with that, make sure you guys drop a like because we had over 400 people in here just a minute ago. So let's get us over 100 likes, show some love, and subscribe if you are new here.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Let me add to that too. Florida's already past the target for the past decade for having the highest recruiting class. Now, if you reach 291 or higher, that'll be 2013, the Will Muschamp class. So right now, Florida's already sitting pretty. They've already made kind of recruiting history in their own minds as a school,
Sure.
for having the highest recruiting class for the decade. But now you can go even more further than that if you hit 290, 291.
There we go. I love it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir.
You're muted, Connor.
Love that you guys brought that up. Yeah, I realized that like halfway through my statement. But no, I love that you guys brought that up because I was actually doing some of the math and digging today. Florida currently sits at 277.98 in the 247 composite ranking, dating back to Florida's number 1 class in 2010. No class has ever finished outside the top 10 with that ranking alone. So Florida is all but guaranteed to finish. If they don't add anybody else, is all but guaranteed to finish in the top 10 in recruiting.
Solid.
Now, I did a little bit of a mock class with myself today, adding 4 names that we discussed. I won't specify which 4, but added 4 names that got Florida up to 296.23. Now, 296.23 would be the highest rated Florida class since that number 1 class back in 2010. And with that ranking of 296.23, no class has ever finished lower than 5th nationally at that point total, and 8 times since 2010 they finished in the top 3 nationally.
I don't think we need to say
Boom.
that. I think we just let them Hollywood, baby, is what they call them.